Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland, the best darn show about paranormal and other stuff. I got to throw in because we're not all that paranormal tonight. We're paranormal in a fiction capacity.
Sure,
but we're still the best dang show you ever heard. I'm your host, Chauncey Allworth. This is my co-host, Kara. What's up,
Hello.
Kara? How are you doing?
Pretty good.
You're rocking some white stripes. That's I see you're recovering. You're coming out of mourning from your all black.
I just don't have any warm black clothes.
I see. So today is a day off of work for a lot of people.
That's true.
Because yesterday was Veterans Day.
Yes.
Veterans Day is famously on the final day of the day the guns fell silent, which is the end of World War I.
Yes, I'm aware.
But interestingly enough, yesterday was exactly 100 years since the guns fell silent, which is actually the 8th to the 11th because, you know, they didn't have the internet. So they had to ride around and tell each other. So I don't know. I think that's pretty awesome.
I think they did have radio, right?
Yeah, sort of.
Actually, that might have been a little before radio. A long time ago, geez.
Totally. I don't know. I don't know what went on. I just know it was terrible.
Yeah.
And that we won.
Well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really won World War I.
Well, somebody has to win. And that was us.
Yeah, I guess in the sense that our nation was not destroyed.
History is written by the victors, and
we're writing the history.
And we wrote that we won.
The victors.
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Well, that's certainly a way of looking at it.
Yeah, so, well, this is why I bring this up, because, like, I feel that, so conservatives, I feel are making a huge mistake by every time the topic of racism or sexism is brought up, they take a defensive stance.
Sure.
And I realize there's a lot of conservatives out there. I'm not saying every single person. I'm just saying the movement on the whole. You know,
right. There's a distinction between, you know, average people who are conservative versus, you know, the prevailing culture among politicians and media.
And so the reason why I point this out is that on the left, the liberals, where I think they fail, is that they're constantly being put into this box of not supporting the country or the military.
Sure.
And as a person who definitely leans left, I definitely want to make it perfectly clear that I do support the military. I may not always support the people who are telling them what to do, but those individuals that go and do that stuff, I have the utmost respect for.
Sure.
You know, the idea that there's a bunch of people over there with guns that want to kill people, and they're going to look at us and say, okay, well, which one of you guys want to go help with this? And I'm going to be all, well, that other guy might, you know, because obviously I'm not that material, but I understand the need for him. So to all the veterans out there, you know, I got the utmost respect for you. And so I guess that's what I need to throw in for Veterans Day.
Well, yeah, that's certainly a reasonable thing to say for Veterans Day, and I would, of course, agree.
Well, did you watch this thing with Pete Davidson and Dan Crenshaw?
I don't know who either of those people are.
Okay, well, Pete Davidson was a comedian on SNL who made fun of the way Dan Crenshaw looked because he was missing an eye.
Okay, go on.
The world went crazy because...
military service. You got to mention that bit.
Right.
You were getting to that.
Right, it was, yeah. The world went crazy because Dan Crenshaw lost his eye and has an eye patch because in Afghanistan he was blown up by a IED.
I see.
And so people went crazy at Pete Davidson. So there's this great video on SNL this week where Pete Davidson is on apologizing, and Dan Crenshaw comes out and basically makes fun of Pete Davidson, which is just really well done. And then at the end, Dan Crenshaw says something about how we all need to team together and basically look if a comedian from SNL and a ex-military guy who was lost an eye in Iraq can forgive each other and get along, maybe the rest of us can too. You know, and so it was really quite moving, really quite well said.
And this was like a Veterans Day thing, or?
No, the week before.
Okay.
The week before.
For Veterans Day, I shall make fun of people who
the week before Pete Davidson, he has this thing where it's first impressions where they put up a picture of people, and you got to give their first impression. And
his
first, so Dan Crenshaw's kind of a bearded guy with an eye patch, and Pete Davidson's first impression was that he was a hitman from a porno movie. And, and then made some sort of joke about how he lost it in war or something, and then laughed.
You know, what
people did not like that.
Was kind of nice was that Pete Davidson, his father was a firefighter in 9/11. I think he made a reference to that.
Yeah, Dan Crenshaw did basically said that they're heroes all over, and it was quite moving. We were I was talking with Andrea about it today. Andrea, the mystery other person on this show, and she said that she teared up on it, and so did my wife when this was going on. So that's beautiful. Some beautiful stuff out there, man.
I'm missing out.
You are. You don't watch SNL?
No, I don't really watch TV.
So you don't watch SNL or vote in Texas, so you have no idea who these two people are. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to say your anecdote is totally irrelevant to me, Chauncey, but...
Right. I assume you appreciate two different people coming together and having a moment.
I guess.
What?
I'm not really into unity, honestly.
Really?
I'm more into smashing people who are different.
Oh. Well, I think
this is untrue.
I think you're going to need to get you're going to have to join a larger demographic if that's the case.
Yeah, that's possible. No, we trans people are just all going to band together and conquer the country. Well, that's the trans agenda secretly.
Right.
Due to our overwhelming military strength.
Yeah, well, apparently, I don't know.
Actually, there are a surprisingly large number of trans women who are veterans, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I don't know if there is that large of a number, if the news just likes to make a big deal of it.
No, it actually is a thing, most of whom were, closeted when they were in the military. As I understand it, it's kind of a, maybe instead of transitioning, I'll just go die for my country type of thing.
Yeah, well,
so that's probably going to change a little bit, hopefully,
noble.
If, since things are improving and all that.
Right.
One would hope that fewer people would choose suicide by Taliban as a proxy.
So what else uplifting has happened to you this week?
Wow, you're right. I just took that to a very dark place.
Wah, wah. So... Tell me, we're coming up on commercial break.
I don't know. Nothing happens in my life. You always ask me this, and nothing happens.
Be quiet now.
Okay.
Be quiet. Nobody cares what you have to say.
All
right. Our guest tonight is Mark Slade.
Yes.
Blood Noir is his podcast.
Which I love that name.
Gotta love that name. And it's basically like scripted audio dramas. And, I was listening to it today. I listened to one called Olivia. It was great. It was sort of rich with characters and sounds. There was a lot going on. It was really, really well done. Surprisingly.
When I think noir audio dramas, I think back throwback to the 40s or
the Shadow,
or the 20s. Exactly.
Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts?
That's exactly what I think of. So is this like that?
Definitely a little bit more current in the sense that it kind of has this sort of psychedelia level to the audio production value. But yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
So it's the Shadow for a modern era.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is exactly what we need, I think.
I agree.
We've been missing the Shadow.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so you're listening to Radio Wasteland. When we come on back, we got our guest, Mark Slade.
I'm sure you're wondering why you received this tape from a random stranger.
What was that?
What?
I heard something.
Like what?
Like a gunshot.
But is it really random? Am I really a stranger? Or are we connected in some way to a web of lies and deceit? Possibly murder?
I'm sorry about our argument the other day. I'd like to make it up to you. In your office. I've been such a bad girl. I need you to correct me.
Okay. I'll unlock the door.
Hello, Ben. How are ya?
All right, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Mark Slade. Mark, do we have you there with us?
Hey, how are you?
Oh, we are doing great. We just heard a sample there of some of the stuff that you just were doing.
Well, let's postpone the interview here. I want to know what happens next.
Well, you got to tune. You
hold
got to tune
on.
in. You know?
You can't leave me hanging like that.
Yeah. So
you can go to Anchor FM and type in Blood Noir, and you can find it there.
Yeah, when I typed in Blood Noir podcast, it just blew up. There was a ton of links to your stuff all over the internet.
Well, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. Man, I listened to it today. I believe it was your newest one, Olivia.
Yeah.
And I listened to it today. Go ahead.
That was directed by Pete Lutz.
And I really just enjoyed it. It was intense. It was fun. It was atmospheric. And it's, every once in a while I have these guests on who, do what I wish I had done with my life. And I find it, I'm a little jealous.
Well, it's never too late. You can still do it.
I don't know if I can.
Sure.
Well, years of giving up being creative to raise children. So. Yeah, years of giving up being creative to raise children. I think that part of me is all dried up now.
You can still do it. Trust me.
All right.
You can still do it. If I can do it, anybody can.
So what inspired you to get started doing this?
Shoot. To be honest, it probably all started with the Twilight Zone show when I was a kid. I always wanted my own show. Especially to tell different stories, and it always had to be horror, crime, and science fiction and fantasy. So, but to do this right now, I think I always had an interest in radio plays.
Hey, Mark, we're getting some fluctuations in volume here on this end.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's better.
All right, go ahead. You were saying the Twilight Zone?
Yeah, definitely the Twilight Zone, Tales from the Dark Side, and shows. But as far as doing radio plays, I had the chance to meet some guys at the 4077 Productions. I wrote a couple of scripts for them, and I was really fascinated with how the actors would bring it to life. So they helped me out and, showed me how to do, actually get a script going, but they also showed me, how to look at the waves, and how to edit and all that kind of stuff. And, they really helped me out a whole lot. And, it just went from there, and then that by chance I met Pete Lutz, who's always helping me. He's always casting for me, so.
Yeah, well, that was one of the most impressive aspects of it, is sort of the size of the cast and the quality of the acting, because that's really the hardest part any time in my life that I've tried to do something creative, is to find not only talented people, but reliable people who will show up.
Well, that's true. But all this is done by people who have their own microphones, or Pete records them for me. Amy Pavey has also done some recording for me. Lothar Tuppen, Tanya Malajevic, all of them have helped me, and they've all been featured in my program, or Amy will be featured coming up. And
Mark, let me cut you off there. We're having some sound fluctuation problems. We're going to go to commercial. We're going to get this taken care of, and we will be right back with our guest, Mark Slade, here on Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Mark Slade. Mark, before we went to commercial, we were talking about really this sort of amazing part. So being a person who's created, it's easy to sit down and create for myself. It's really just amazing when you're able to pull together a bunch of people who are really sort of committed to making something happen.
Yeah, that's half the battle there anyway, is to find people who are like-minded and who want to do the projects that you present them with. A lot of times, 99% of the time it works out. Then there's hang-ups, you always present somebody with a script that they're not comfortable with, or they do they're maybe not actually right for the role. But most of the people that I work with, they do their own shows and they know what you go through. So it always works out in the end.
So are most of them hosts, or are most of them aspiring actors, or do we have a combination of both?
All the above. In the audio world, audio drama, a lot of times it's hard to find somebody who will edit your work. So basically, you have to teach yourself how to do it. But most of them that I work with, they are already actors. Like Pete Lutz, he acts on the stage. Tanya Milajevic, she's done commercials. You know, like I said, a lot of people, they do their own thing. You know, we talk back and forth on Facebook, email. You know, I'll email people scripts and they'll email me back their lines, or, you know, give me a link to Google, whichever works out.
Right. So Mark, where are you located?
I'm in Williamsburg, Virginia, actually.
Virginia. So are a lot of these people local to you, or are they sort of from all over?
They're from all over the world, to be honest. Kessie Relinke, sorry, Kessie, if I messed your last name up. She's German, and she hails from Germany, and I get her to do voice work for me as well.
Oh,
I have people from England. It just varies, you know.
So where do you find these people? Do you just get started and then your collection of people to draw from for talent grows? Or?
Yeah, it does actually. A lot of it, I'm gonna give Pete all the, you know, he's the one that's set me up with a lot of actors. Usually he has actors and actresses around him in his area. He lives in Texas. So Corpus Christi, and he does really well with acting. He brings them into his home, and he has a studio there, and he records them, and he even directs them for me.
Man, that is really cool. I have to say that is really cool. You were totally tickling my creative bone here. That is like totally just something I would totally love to do. Maybe I need to be in your circle of peeps. You know, I obviously have access to the recording equipment as well.
Hey, if you have friends, you know, I mean, if you have ideas, we can get together. We can create something.
So how do these ideas come to you? So do you produce one a month? Are you writing all of them?
Not all of them anymore. I was. I've been kind of busy with you know, work and family, things like that.
The boring stuff.
That's what keeps you rooted, though, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I could do with that.
If you go sailing off into the universe, you know, it's hard to come back down, isn't it?
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, I've been married for 16 years. I'm pretty done with it now, you know, thinking about moving on. On to radio dramas. No, I'm kidding. I'm hoping my wife's listening, frankly.
It's not that hard to do all this. You know, you juggle a few things. Sometimes it becomes too complicated, you know. A lot of late nights into the wee hours of the morning, working on the same 3 minutes that you've been working on a couple days before, you know. But, you know, I also write books too, you know, short stories. Once in a while I get paid for it. But
Right. Yeah, that's the hard part about being a creative. You know, what you were saying there about listening to the same 3 minutes, you know. I was a musician for years, and really I would drive the people around me nuts as I sort of put a section on loop as I sit there and I'm tweaking with the audio and I'm tweaking with the effects. And to me, I'm sort of in the zone doing it, but to somebody else sitting in the room, you know, they're slowly being driven mad by the repetition,
right.
You know.
Hey, I understand that, but one good thing about me is that I could only be so obsessed for so long, and I've made my share of mistakes on that audio. I'm sure, you know, if you go through the episodes, you'll hear there's a lot of mistakes in it, but I just let it go, just put it out there. And that's another good thing is that it's all free,
Right. That's definitely been
if I could get paid, but.
Oh, absolutely. That's definitely been a problem of mine. And a lot of people who are creatives is that, they're never done, and you can go on forever. And there comes a point where you really just sort of need to cut yourself off and say, okay, I did pretty good. The next one will be better, and getting to that point can be difficult.
It's the same thing with writing stories. You can't labor over that one line for like 6 months.
Right.
You'll never finish.
Right. Yeah. So how does the story writing go for you? When you sit down, are you aware that you're writing a script or a short story, or do you just kind of come up with the idea and as it evolves, maybe it turns into one or the other, or do you like to produce it for both? How's this writing process go?
All the above, but, there are some stories that will never make it into a script because that's just not, they're a different animal altogether. You know that's meant as a short story, that's meant to be a novel. It'll never make it into being an audio program because way too many words. There's maybe not enough characters. Things like that.
Right.
And some stories, it's hard to translate into a script. I've had a few stories where I've had to come up with an idea that it would have to be a narrator involved. Not necessarily a narrator like the 1930s or 40s, but it could be somebody who's, telling the story to people. They cut in between the actors and they tell what's going on or something that happened years ago, that kind of thing.
Sure, anything from narration to first person. I like a lot of books on tape, and I like a lot of audio dramas. One that was really interesting for me, I'm not sure if you've checked out the website LibriVox, but...
oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I'm always going to it.
Yeah, for the audience, LibriVox is basically stories in the public domain that are being read aloud, and then that audio is in the public domain as well. And so there was this really interesting one where they did Dracula, and for anybody who hasn't read Dracula, Dracula is actually a collection of letters. That's what the entire book is.
And
it was
journal entries.
And journal entries and letters. And it was really interesting that they had a different person reading each one. And so as you go through, you have Jonathan, you got Mia, you got each of your ones going through. And so are you really, you said that you're coming from this sort of Outer Limits, Night Gallery, Tales from the Dark Side background. Did you go back and sort of check out a lot of these radio dramas as well, like The Shadow we were talking about in the beginning?
Most definitely. Always a source of inspiration. And especially when I used to do Blackout City, which I co-created with Frank Larnard. That started out as a podcast where one guy narrated all the stories about a detective who lived in the alternative Los Angeles. But Los Angeles is called Blackout City because the Chinese bombed them and so on. Well, I turned that into a radio program, and that's what I had to do with that. So I went back and I listened to Nero Wolfe. Then there's a 1940s version, and then there's a CBC Canadian broadcast version that's from the late 70s, early 80s, and man, I'm telling you, that is really good. That radio program's excellent.
Yeah.
But also,
it's interesting that they were making that in the early 80s radio programs still like that.
Yeah, the Canadians were. They're not anymore. I can't remember what year they stopped doing radio drama. Now, the British still do them.
Yeah, I come across those a lot, and I'm always surprised, like, what kind of culture, because to us it's very much a niche thing on the internet, and but the BBC, it seems to be, is still putting this stuff out.
Yeah, they're still producing them because, I guess they just never lost, they never lost that part of their imagination. They can probably separate their brains from that. I don't think Americans can. It has to be visual. For some reason. Yeah, I definitely... television's messed us up.
Yeah, my favorite to listen to is there are a lot of just great audio dramas and audio storytellings, but audio dramas like, full productions like what you do of H.P. Lovecraft.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of those out there. And, true, BBC produces quite a bit of H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah, that's where I'm catching it. Yeah, absolutely. So when you do these things, are you ever going to public domain stories and sort of turning them into a script, or are they all originals?
I've thought about doing that. I would love to do, if I could get somebody to say it's okay, I would love to do Richard Matheson.
Oh, yeah.
But I have done a couple scripts of public domain for Pete Lutz for his Potpourri show, and it's funny to read some of those stories from the early 1900s, especially the adventures. They're a lot different from the adventure stories from any time period. It's you never know when it's going to start out as a Western, and it could end up being an urban Western,
right?
Or it could even be in horror.
Right, sci-fi, horror,
that's
Western.
One of the great things about pulp.
Yeah, I agree. Robert E. Howard, there's just all these great pulp stories that are really just sort of dying for this. It's like they're sort of made with this dialogue to really kind of be that, to be quickly consumed.
Exactly. And, they're not as, they're not as political. Some of them are really political in their story. And, people nowadays have this idea that gender was such a big issue back then, and not really. If you read pulp stories, it's not really.
No.
You find a lot of female protagonists out there.
I think that's much more of a 1950s thing than like a 1910s, 1920s thing. As far as I know from the history, like the early 20th century was actually pretty progressive compared to, say, the middle of the 20th century.
Right. Well, but there was a lot of good radio, especially back in the 40s and 50s. This is interesting. Rod Serling actually had a radio show in the 70s.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he did. I can't remember what it's called right now, but I was listening to it last year, and some of the stories were pretty good. Not all of them were. They were hour-long episodes.
Yeah.
I think most of them were kind of thriller-based, not necessarily ghosts and, that kind of thing.
Not all
with
a twist
cool
like
if
that.
you could have done that.
Yeah. Well, as far as, Rod Serling was prolific as a writer, man. He, a lot of those original Twilight Zones, he, wrote them all. But a good deal of them, or a few of them, were also written by Ray Bradbury.
Yeah, well, I think there was one by Bradbury. I don't think him and Serling really got along like that. And I think Ray Bradbury's stories, which, one of my favorite writers anyway, but they're hard to translate.
I could.
Because it's more like a beautiful prose. And sometimes when you tinker with something like that for television or audio or something, you kind of lose that beauty in it. Sometimes the stories get kind of muffled.
Well,
and
this is maybe
the Body
a little...
Electric, I think, was kind of like that on the Twilight Zone. But
they definitely changed a few things. Yeah, well, I don't know if you've seen this, but this might be off topic, but something you should look up is in the 80s, there was an anthology series called Ray Bradbury Theatre.
Yes. Yes, sir, I do know it.
Oh,
yep,
awesome.
It came on USA.
USA Network, yes. I tried to talk to people about this, and nobody ever knows. Did you watch Werewolf with Eric Cord?
I don't remember.
Where he gets the pentagram on his palm and he turns into a werewolf. I mean, the show is rad, but nobody ever knows what I'm talking about.
Oh, my God, you too.
All right.
But that show started out, it was on HBO, which was the reason why I think the first 6 episodes, the first 3, I can't remember, were such high quality.
Ray Bradbury Theatre was originally on HBO.
Yeah.
Oh, that makes sense.
Which is, I think they had Drew Barrymore on the one, I don't know if you remember that story. Oh, man, what is it called? When she's playing in the field and she hears a woman screaming. I think it's called The Screaming Woman. And it's actually a woman that was buried alive.
That's disturbing. But that's how I like them. I like them disturbing. All right, Mark, we're coming up on break here. I'm definitely going to look that up on break. You're listening to Mark Slade from Blood Noir here on Radio Wasteland. Come on back. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We're here with our guest, Mark Slade, from the podcast Blood Noir. Mark, here, I was talking to Andrea, and she says you have a few anthologies coming out and maybe even a novel.
Yeah, I do.
Can you tell us a little about those?
What I have coming out, I'm in Southern Fried Autopsies. I have a story called Blood Reek, and it's about Alvin Carter. I don't know if you know who he is, from the Carter family.
No, I don't.
He used to go through, the Appalachians, collecting songs from people, and he goes to this town that just experienced a storm that devastated the area, so runs into some pretty strange things. I also have a story, it's in Switchblade number 7, called Last Savior, and it's the first story about my mafia fixer, Barry London, and he's sent to go help a woman to leave a cult. In that one, that's my crime thing. I like writing crime stories on the side.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
very violent ones.
Oh, that's selling to me. And then a novel, Witch for Hire.
Yeah, Witch for Hire. Close to the Bone Publications. Hopefully, we'll be getting it out by I'm not sure when, but it's hopefully in 2019, and I don't know if you've seen the cover, but I think I sent the cover to you guys.
Yeah.
And that's my kind of mystery. I don't like to really throw Murder She Wrote in there, but something similar to that, but with a witch, and definitely is not meant for old people to read. If you know what I'm saying.
Right. It's a modern.
Older folks will.
Modern noir.
Murder, that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's like modern noir. So there's a healthy dose of gore and violence in there?
There's definitely a healthy dose of noir, and I wouldn't say necessarily gore, but there's a lot of violence in it. That's for sure.
A man after my own heart with a machete.
A lot of very weird stuff,
Yeah. So, I always have a hard time, like I sit down to try to do these things, and I always just have this hard time to continue. Where do you find the time to get all this done?
I don't know. You just kind of, it's hard to say. You just kind of make yourself do them. Whether it's an hour out of the day or 6 hours. A lot of times, especially for writing, I try to wake up early in the morning if I can. Early, really isn't early. It's like 10:30. Get a cup of coffee, a couple cups, and that's my time that I'm going to sit and write. That's what I tell myself.
Right.
For that.
And that's alone time for you.
Huh?
And I assume that's an alone time for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The scripts come pretty easy. But as far as like doing audio drama, man, that sucks a lot of time out of your day.
Yeah, and plus you're producing one a month, so you're on a schedule, so it's like, do you have a backlog of stories that you draw from that you sort of have in a folder, so
yeah.
when
something like that,
when the times come in and you just got to pick one?
A little bit. I kind of, if I look at the title of what I had, then I know exactly if it'll fit or not. But, also, like I said, I've relied on a lot of friends. Like Pete Lutz has donated quite a few episodes. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to his other episode that he did for Pulpery Theater that he did a long time ago. It's called Fingers. And it's about these two guys kidnapped this young girl, and they've blindfolded her. They're holding her in a cabin, but this he hears the voice of this young girl who comes to help her. And it's pretty creepy, let me tell you.
Yeah, it sounds good. The only one I've listened to thus far is Olivia, and I really enjoyed it. It was definitely dark and creepy.
The first one.
the episode one.
Yeah, definitely. That really kicked off the show pretty good. I'm kind of proud of that one.
Really, I purposefully picked the newest one, figuring that it would be somewhat like my radio program, where the first couple of episodes were questionable, but I'm happy for you for kicking off on a good one. I'm not sure people should go back and listen to our first archives.
Yeah, if you want to listen to our old shows, start at the newest ones and work backwards.
Right,
that's pretty much a rule for our listeners.
Well, shoot, y'all have a hard job of producing one of these. How many shows do you do? You do one every night?
No, we do a Radio Wasteland every week.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Once a week, yeah. And we always have the luck of having a guest on who is really sort of the focus.
Who is far more knowledgeable than us.
Right. We don't have to be all that well prepared or researched. We just have to, know the guest and be interested in the topic, and really sort of the rest takes care of itself, So that's kind of like when I look at what you're doing and think about my own creative past, I'm just, oh man, I totally settled on the easy thing of talk radio when I should have been making radio dramas.
Hey, I tell you what, I can always use some creative help. So why don't we get together, and discuss some stuff?
Sounds good. I absolutely would love to do that. I have tons of story ideas, and I am also willing to just be a voice, and I bet you Carrie is here too.
That is correct.
Hey, both of you can be voices if you like. And I'm always looking to have music as well. Well, if you don't mind doing something like that.
I don't. All right. Well, we'll have to talk about it. Well, unfortunately, we're coming up on the end here. How can people find out more about you, and how can people listen to Blood Noir?
Blood Noir, Para X Radio every Saturday night at midnight. 12 a.m. Sunday morning. Also, you can...
And that's Eastern time? That's 12 o'clock Eastern time, right?
Yes, sorry. Yeah, I forgot about that. Would it be okay if I plugged a couple friends' stuff, too?
Absolutely. Let's hear it.
Okay, Lothar Tuppen. He has an episode that's on Sonic Society, and Sonic Society is really easy to find on the internet. He has an episode called Voting is Anonymous. Pete Lutz has some stuff coming up. He's got a 10-episode horror show, The Cellar, coming up in 2019, and I'm really looking forward to that. Tanya Milajevic has just written with Josh Price an episode of Dark Shadows, which was produced by Big Finish. Big Finish is pretty much top of the line when it comes to audio drama. That's where you can get paid.
That's the...
Also, I have a friend, Amy Pavey. She does a really great noir show. It's called 12 Chimes. It's midnight. And, I mean, all of these shows are really excellent. And, they're very easy to find on the internet. All you have to do is just look them up. You can look me up, too, on Facebook. I post everything that has to do with what's going on with me. So.
Well, Mark, I got to say, it's been great having you on the show. It's very inspiring. It's great to know that there's such a large scene of this going on out there, that there's, art being created across the internet that has value and that isn't just trying to sell stuff. So I really appreciate it. And, yes, we will have to touch bases. I am totally interested.
Hey, both of you can be voices on my programs. It's never a problem.
I love it. All right, you've been listening to Mark Slade from Blood Noir here on Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. You've been listening to our guest, Mark Slade from Blood Noir.
Blood Noir. And,
man, this is like the third guest that we've had where I questioned my life choices. First there was the Paranormal Partridge Family.
Right.
You remember the woman who had like the motorhome and she
Right,
blew
they
up her
go
whole
around
family?
traveling, seeing all these paranormal
Yeah, and I'm just
sites,
all like,
yeah.
oh my God, I should have been the
Could've been
paranormal
me.
Partridge Family. And then of course, we've had other writers who are inspiring.
Yes,
Public
we've had
fans.
several horror writers on.
But T. Fox.
T. Fox, yes.
As a horror writer.
T. Fox Dunham, right?
T. Fox Dunham. Yeah, but he said I could call him T. Fox.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
I think you might have just said that.
That makes him sound like a rapper.
Yeah.
Yo,
like
T. Fox.
Yeah, everybody needs a rap name. My rap. What's your rap name?
I don't have a rap name.
We're gonna have to get you a rap name.
Okay.
My rap name is Papa Squat.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
Yeah. Papa Squat. But yeah, it totally makes me. Jared, do you have a rap name? I see you going towards the mic. Do you have a rap name? Is it like J Rod or something?
It's Jer Bear.
Jer Bear.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's more of a pet name than a rap name.
Oh, what? You can have Dead Mouse, but no Jer Bear?
No Jer Bear. No, that's
What if I was Dead Bear?
I don't know.
And I had a big bear hat.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Jer Bear sounds like it's its own .com with a bunch of people who look just like you. Bearded dudes. If you get my point.
Stop abusing the radio tech.
I'm not participating in this anymore.
All right, fine. All right, so I'm questioning my life choices.
Yeah, so I like how it's not the shows that explain how, like, the moon is an alien spaceship or, the world's coming to an end or demons lurk around every corner that really leave you all, like, wide-eyed and freaked out. No, you get the 1,000-yard stare after we talk to the authors and the radio drama guys.
Yeah, well, don't you want to be creative with your life? You do.
Yes.
You're writing now. How's your writing coming?
I don't know. You tell me. I sent the book to you.
I have been reading it, but I assume you've still been writing, haven't you?
Well, yeah.
And? Are you close, or did you just spit it all out and now you've walked away?
No, my intention is to get it published, but I've just been tweaking it, and it's very, as you pointed out many times on the show before, it's very easy to get stuck into the trap of, just remove a comma, put it back,
right,
kind of thing. It's hard to know when you're done, but it's like, I've only been working on this thing for about a month, so
right.
I figure I can go for longer before it starts to get unreasonable.
So do you edit your own work?
Yeah.
You do?
Yeah, but, you try to show it to as many people as possible because there's stuff you miss or there's stuff that just in your head makes perfect sense to you, but then someone says, it makes the main character unlikable when they kick that puppy. And it's like, oh, yeah, you're right, it does.
What did you go to school for again?
Writing.
Writing. Oh,
Literature.
Yeah, that was not meant to be a smart-ass question.
I could not tell.
Yeah, no, it was not. Because maybe you'll know the answer to this. I'm kind of curious. When I think about an editor, I think about writing something, and I think about my school teacher coming through with a red pen and saying I needed a comma and blah, blah, blah.
Well, sure,
but
that's
in
a big part of it.
In the case of editing, though, like if I had an editor and I wrote a story, and let's say I had an editor and a publisher and blah, 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 when that do I write it and I'm done with it, it goes to the editor and they change my story up and out it goes, or do they make notes and send it back to me? How does that work? Do you know?
Well, it depends on where you're sending it, but if you're dealing with the big publishers, Penguin or whatever, there's going to be a period where they're telling you what to do and you're rewriting parts of the book.
I see. Where they're saying this just isn't working.
Exactly. So it's not just commas and stuff. It's also, it's the process of making a book publishable.
Right.
Which, a book usually isn't when it goes in, especially not the first book. Of course, it should be polished.
Right. So an editor in the case of books and publishing is probably somewhere between marketing and a creative person.
Yeah.
Like an artistic person.
These publishing houses are very concerned with, who are we going to sell this to? Who wants to buy this? They're trying to sell the book.
Yeah, I'm just saying it would be hard to be that role of that editor who works with other people's creative works, but doesn't necessarily do creating on their own. They're just editing these works and tweaking them, and that's an interesting.
I know
world.
that editor is often a common profession for people who are aspiring, or even not aspiring, but actual authors as well.
Right. Well, I mean, those who can't teach, right?
Yeah, but also those who can.
I don't know.
I mean,
they can, man. I saw Wolf. I know what's going on.
True, but okay, now I can't think of any examples, but I know there have been famous writers who were also editors.
I'm sure that there are. I think earlier we were talking about Ray Bradbury. I think he edited quite a few anthologies that were not just his writing. And so with anthologies, I've known a lot of actual authors that did the editing. But in those cases, I don't know, how much change they have to the story. It's just interesting how it's this big world out there. As a movie fan, I'm always bringing up, like, people are all like, oh, the directing was rad, and the director does not have quite the control that people seem to think that the director does.
Oh, yeah.
The director is basically a project manager, which is very impressive, but a lot of the camera, a lot of the camera work is coming from the cinematographer, and a lot of the overall visual and story is coming from the producer, the person with the money.
Yeah. Well, they're just the person at the top. I think a lot of directors understand that, like, the buck stops with them, even if that's unfair.
But it doesn't. It stops with the producer.
Well,
I guess the producer, right? I mean, when you're writing your own checks, I guess it doesn't.
In the eyes of the fans, right? Like, the director is the one who's on the hook for all these creative decisions,
right? Yeah,
because they were managing the project as a whole,
right? Yeah,
as opposed to a single facet of it.
So as a kid, I grew up going like, "Oh, I totally want to be a director," but now I'm just like, I think I want to be a producer.
Yeah, no, I too would like to have.
For what I have the
tons of
capital.
money, and yeah,
exactly.
I think I'd want to be a producer and then just not produce anything and just have the money that being a producer implies.
Totally, yeah.
And then just live on that.
Maybe I'll invest this in some mutual funds.
Like, I was talking to someone, or maybe I wasn't talking to someone, maybe I heard this somewhere, I don't remember, but someone was like, asked, what superhero would you most want to be? And be like, Batman. Batman? Yeah, and then I wouldn't be Batman. I'd just be a rich guy.
Right. Totally. Yep. And I'll be Oliver Queen.
That's probably the best.
Yeah, I'll be the Green Arrow. You be Batman, and we'll both quit our night jobs, and our day jobs.
No, I would want to have actual superpowers compared with having a lot of money, because I think most superpowers could net you a lot of money really quickly. Totally. So, I think the...
Yeah, what's a Wheaties endorsement worth? Bruce Jenner. That's where, or Caitlyn Jenner. That's where she got all her money, is endorsements.
Oh, okay.
Olympic athletes. These people are not making.
See, I don't know, because I was actually not remotely aware of her before any of the trans stuff.
Right.
Like, I had to look up, okay, who's this Bruce Jenner character in the first place? Yeah. Why do people care about this person?
Olympian. Yeah.
Right.
Important Olympian. Yeah.
This I did not know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where these, in the case of like Michael Jordan, these people are getting massive amounts of money. But in the case of Olympians, it is like Michael Phelps, that guy's got a lot of money.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't know. What comes with the gold medal? I don't know. Who cares? We're getting off topic. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. When we come on back, we got some news. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. Carrie, you got some news for us.
Yeah, want to share a new news story and also update you all on some older stuff. The new news story is that 3 airline pilots have spotted UFOs above Ireland, specifically above Kerry. Now, airline pilots spot UFOs all the time, as we might know from some of the guests we had on the earlier shows. These particular ones were reported by several witnesses, and an incident report was logged with the Irish equivalent of our... Shoot. What's the government agency that deals with flight stuff?
Oh,
yes, thank you.
the FAA?
The FAA, yeah. The Irish equivalent of that.
Oh, okay.
So what was seen was bright streaks of light shooting off at impossible speeds into the horizon.
Crazy.
Yeah, experts are saying that based on the reports, it might have been meteors. But, you know, the same experts then donned sunglasses, drew black cylinders from their coats, and instructed everyone to look at the bright light.
Right.
I don't know if I buy the meteor thing. Like, these pilots are pilots. They've probably seen meteors at night from an aircraft before. And, you know, meteorological expert or not, they weren't there. And they didn't see whatever it was that was apparently so weird that an incident report was logged. So yeah. I'm thinking meteors is kind of a suspicious explanation, but who knows?
I might be having a little bit of wishful thinking here, but I like to think that my pilots are like looking out the front window flying the plane.
Well, you know, it gets boring.
I like to think that they're seeing stuff and that they know what's going on, you know.
Well, okay, you see stuff other than, you know, what's directly in front of you when you're driving, right?
No, I'm not coming down on that. I'm coming down on the meteor thing, that obviously they've seen these sorts of things before. And if a pilot is basically, and multiple pilots are saying, hey, man, we saw something weird.
Right, exactly.
that we should give a little credence to that. It's like, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was
It's like if you get in a car wreck on the road and the truck driver says that he saw everything, I'm going to be all, we should listen to the truck driver because, yeah. I mean, you know.
Even if someone else later goes, well, what you actually saw was probably, you know, this or that. It's like,
it was a car-shaped meteor crossing the road at 15th and Franklin.
Light reflected off of swamp gas.
Was it a Tesla by chance coming back to Earth?
Maybe. Yeah, it was the
could have been
Starman.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one thing. And I share that along with a couple of other news stories just because, you know, it's interesting, but there's not a lot of detail yet.
Right.
It's just that, you know, pilots have seen some bright lights.
Yeah, and a lot of the detail is just going to be speculation unless it was sort of a large meteor event that...
right. It's just not clear.
That science might come out and say, yeah, there was a... You know, right.
So, next we've got, do you remember our friend Denver Riggleman?
No, and I'm ashamed to say that with the last name
with
like
a name
Riggleman.
like that, yeah. Okay, here's a hint. He was running for office. Here's another hint. A bigger hint. He wrote Bigfoot erotica.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. And his last name's Riggleman, and he writes Bigfoot erotica.
Yes.
How can you forget
his last name is Riggleman.
That's like 50% of the way to Anthony Weiner, man. That's crazy.
The name of his opponent was... So it was Denver Riggleman versus Leslie Cockburn.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That was the race. Anyway, the news is that Denver Riggleman won.
Oh.
And is now a House member from the great state of Virginia.
Great.
So there's that.
Was he the conservative?
Yeah, he was.
Yes, Jared. No Cockburn joke coming from me.
It's too obvious.
So, yeah, that's beneath me. Yeah, so, oh my gosh. So, well, he's not too conservative.
Oh,
you know, I mean, he's willing to do the nasty with a Bigfoot.
Okay, that's true, but he's also... See, I don't actually care about the erotica. I feel like that's not the least bit disqualifying or anything. Like, I don't mind that, but...
It's his views on immigration, really.
Well, actually...
Is that what you're going to say?
It kind of is.
That sucks.
No, well, he's been spotted... He has troubling associations with lots of known white supremacists, which makes me not like him.
That's weird that they'd be cool
but I
with
guess
Bigfoot
that
erotica,
isn't a problem.
I mean, white supremacists are...
Okay, white supremacists are...
Don't get me if I'm wrong here, but they are opposed to different races mixing. But they are totally cool with different species mixing, apparently.
Yeah, I think so.
I guess this really prompts the question that everybody's wondering, and that is, are Bigfoots white? Because if they are,
oh God,
I think this is fine.
Yeah, that's definitely what we were all wondering.
So first thing we need to do, we need to go out there and we need to catch a Bigfoot.
Right. We need to do that.
Second thing we need to do is we need to shave it. So we know if it's okay for this guy to like it.
Okay. At least it's not miscegenation.
No. I mean,
Oh, God.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, so I forget my last story now.
Really?
Wait, no, I don't. But that did put me in a tizzy for a moment.
All right.
So yeah, just an update on my hysterical screeching a few weeks ago about climate change. A new study came out revealing that the ocean has actually absorbed 60% more heat than we thought it did. So, turns out...
I assume that's bad.
Yeah, it is bad because it means... So, a lot of the reason the world hasn't been warming up as quickly as scientists say it ought to be is because the ocean is absorbing a lot of that heat. So, it's not all becoming surface temperatures. So, the last measurements were made, the 90s, early 2000s. So they redid a lot of these measurements and found, okay, wow, the ocean is actually 60% warmer than we thought it was.
So this has to do with all the algae and the red tides.
Yeah, but moreover, there's a limit to, at a certain point, the ocean kind of stops acting as a heat sink to the rest of the world. And when that happens, surface temperatures are going to start going fairly insane. And so I'm not saying, it's time to panic. I am saying, maybe pack your bags and move to a bunker in Alaska and start building a subterranean hydroponics garden. All I'm saying.
And that's not panicking?
I think it's a reasonable response.
I think it is, too. I'm trying to tell my wife we need to move north, and she's just all, the average high in British Columbia is like 60 degrees, and I'm just all, not for long.
Yeah.
Not for long. It'll
be subtropical eventually.
It's going to be balmy there soon,
Yeah. Well, soon in the sense of maybe in 25 years, but yeah.
I hope to be alive in 25 years. That's why I quit smoking.
Well, there we go. So,
and I have children, and I don't want to leave my children in a post-apocalyptic Mad Max wasteland.
Well, it's not really up to you,
They're not
is
that
it?
tough.
Yeah. Neither am I, but, it's not up to you. It's up to the oil companies.
I know. I stupidly raise smart children instead of strong ones.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not going to survive the post-apocalypse. It's just not going to work out.
You're going down.
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
Have you taken one of those tests? See how long you'd last.
One of the how long you would last tests.
They gave me like 5 minutes.
Yeah, they didn't let me take the test. They just took one look at me.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
Like, get the heck out of this website.
We can tell by how daintily you depressed your mouse clicker that this test is probably not for you.
Yeah, pretty much. So, yeah, I'm just hoping to get some real estate in the frozen tundra before the hungry hordes come and, get some time fortifying with automated defenses before I can.
Right. And some sort of meat scraper where you can pick up the hordes and eat them.
Oh, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
Great minds.
All right. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. Good luck.
I am the Lord of Darkness. I require the solace of the shadows and the dark of the night. Sunshine is my destroyer. All this shall change. Tonight, the sun sets forever. There shall never be another dawn. Enter! the most loathsome of my goblins.
Truly, Master.
And is your heart black and full of hate?
Black as midnight, black as pitch, blacker than the foulest witch.
That is why I have called you here. Since I must remain in darkness, you shall be my eyes and ears.
Do me great honor, Lord.
Something troubles me. I feel a presence in the forest. A force I had mercifully almost forgotten.